The wind howled like a dying wolf across the Montana plains as Nathan Rivers latched the barn door shut, his fingers nearly frozen despite the thick leather gloves protecting them. It was January of 1882, and the winter had come down on Fort Benton with a vengeance that even the oldest settlers could not remember seeing before. The temperature had dropped so low that his breath crystallized in the air before his face, and the snow had been falling steadily for 3 days straight. Nathan pulled his coat tighter around his broad shoulders and began the short walk back to his cabin, thinking only of the fire burning in his hearth and the hot coffee waiting for him inside. He was halfway across the yard when he heard it. A sound so faint that at first he thought it was merely the wind playing tricks on his tired mind. But then it came again, clearer this time. A moan, low and filled with such desperation that it stopped him cold in his tracks. Nathan turned toward the front gate of his property, squinting through the driving snow. At first he saw nothing but white, the storm obscuring everything beyond a few feet. Then he saw movement, or rather, a dark shape collapsed against the wooden posts of his gate. Nathan ran, his boots crunching through the deep snow, his heart suddenly pounding with an urgency that had nothing to do with the cold. As he drew closer, he realized the shape was a person, a woman, curled on her side in the snow. She was wearing nothing but a thin dress, torn and soaked through, clinging to her body like a second skin made of ice. Her long dark hair was matted with snow and frozen in places, and her lips had turned a frightening shade of blue. He dropped to his knees beside her, already shrugging out of his heavy coat. Her eyes fluttered open, barely focused, the color a startling green even through the haze of hypothermia. She looked at him, and her cracked lips moved, forming a single word that came out as barely a whisper, carried away almost immediately by the wind. "Please." The word broke something inside Nathan's chest. He wrapped his coat around her immediately, lifting her into his arms as gently as he could manage. She weighed almost nothing, and he could feel her shaking violently against him, her body's desperate attempt to create warmth where there was none. He looked down at her pale face, at the way her eyes struggled to stay open, and he made her a promise right there in the snow. "Always and forever," he whispered, though he did not fully understand why those particular words came to him. "I've got you now, always and forever." Her eyes closed then, and panic seized him. Nathan ran for the cabin, his arms burning with the effort, his lungs screaming in the frigid air. He kicked open the door and carried her straight to the fireplace, laying her down on the thick bearskin rug that covered the floor there. The fire was still roaring, just as he had left it, and he thanked God for that small mercy. Nathan had lived alone for the past 5 years, ever since he had come to Montana Territory to start his ranch. He was 28 years old and had seen his share of hardship, but nothing had prepared him for this. He knew about hypothermia, had seen men die from it during harsh winters out on the range. He knew that he had to warm her slowly. That shock to her system could kill her just as surely as the cold. He peeled the wet dress from her body with shaking hands, trying to maintain her dignity while knowing that modesty was a luxury neither of them could afford right now. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned, layering them carefully around her trembling form. Her skin was like ice beneath his touch, and he could see patches of white on her fingers and toes that spoke of frostbite. Nathan built up the fire even more, then heated water on the stove. He soaked cloths in the warm water and pressed them gently against her hands and feet, replacing them as soon as they cooled. He did this over and over, watching her face for any sign of consciousness. Time seemed to stretch and contract strangely. He had no idea if minutes or hours were passing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, her eyes opened again. She looked around in confusion, then her gaze settled on him. Fear flashed across her face and she tried to pull away. "Easy now," Nathan said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You are safe here. I found you at my gate, nearly frozen to death. I am just trying to help you." She stared at him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face for something. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she relaxed slightly, though she still watched him warily. "Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse, barely more than a rasp. "My ranch, about 5 miles outside Fort Benton. I am Nathan Rivers. What is your name?" She hesitated, and he saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear again, or perhaps uncertainty. "Amelia," she finally said. "Amelia Anderson." "Well, Miss Anderson, you gave me quite a scare. What were you doing out in this storm?" At his question, her face crumpled, and tears began to slide down her cheeks. "I was running," she whispered. "I had to get away." Nathan felt anger rise in his chest, though it was not directed at her. "Who were you running from?" She looked away, her jaw tightening. "It does not matter now. I just need to keep moving. As soon as I am able, I will leave. I do not want to bring trouble to your door." "You are not going anywhere until you are healed," Nathan said firmly. "And I am not afraid of trouble, but we can talk about all that later. Right now, you need to rest and get warm. When was the last time you ate?" Amelia seemed to think about this. "2 days ago, I think. Maybe 3, I am not sure." Nathan stood and moved to his kitchen area, pulling out the pot of stew he had made that morning. He ladled some into a bowl and brought it back to her, along with a spoon. "Can you sit up?" She nodded and struggled to push herself upright, the blankets falling away slightly. Nathan quickly adjusted them to keep her covered, and then helped prop her against the side of his leather chair. He handed her the bowl, and she took it with trembling hands. The first spoonful made her close her eyes in what looked like pure bliss. She ate slowly, and Nathan could tell she was forcing herself not to devour the food too quickly. He had seen starving people make themselves sick that way before. While she ate, he took the opportunity to really look at her. Even in her current state, bedraggled and exhausted, he could see that she was beautiful. She looked to be in her early 20s, with delicate features and that striking dark hair. But it was her eyes that captivated him, the way they held both vulnerability and strength in equal measure. "Thank you," she said when she had finished about half the bowl. "I cannot eat any more right now." "That is all right. You can have more later." Nathan took the bowl from her and set it aside. "Miss Anderson, I need to check your hands and feet for frostbite. Some of the discoloration I saw earlier concerns me." She nodded and extended her hands to him. Nathan examined them carefully in the firelight. Her fingers were red and swollen, but as he watched, the color was slowly returning to normal. That was a good sign. He checked her feet next and found them in similar condition. "I think you will be all right," he said, relief flooding through him. "You were lucky. Another hour out there and you would have lost fingers and toes, if not worse." "I know," Amelia said quietly. "I thought I was going to die out there. I saw your gate and thought if I could just reach it, maybe someone would find me in the morning. I did not expect anyone to be outside in this weather." "I was checking on my horses in the barn," Nathan explained. "They do not much like this cold either." They fell into silence, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the howling wind outside. Nathan could see Amelia fighting to keep her eyes open, her body desperate for rest now that she was warm and fed. "You should sleep," he said gently. "I will keep watch and make sure the fire stays going. You are safe here, Miss Anderson, I give you my word." "Just Amelia," she murmured, her eyes already closing. "And thank you, Nathan, for everything." He watched as sleep claimed her, her breathing evening out into a steady rhythm. Nathan stood and retrieved another blanket from his trunk, laying it carefully over her. Then he settled into his chair, determined to stay awake through the night to tend the fire and watch over his unexpected guest. As the hours passed and the storm continued to rage outside, Nathan found his thoughts turning over the mystery of Amelia Anderson. Who was she running from? What had driven her out into a deadly blizzard wearing nothing but a thin dress? And why did something in his chest tighten every time he looked at her? He had been alone for so long, focused solely on building his ranch and his herd. There had been no time or inclination for romance, no woman who had caught his eye in town on his infrequent visits. But something about Amelia had struck him deeply in the short time since he had found her. Perhaps it was the way she had looked at him with those green eyes and whispered pleas. Or perhaps it was the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide beneath a brittle shell of strength. Nathan shook his head at his own foolish thoughts. The woman had been here mere hours, was running from something terrible, and here he was spinning romantic notions in his head like some green boy. He was better than that, more sensible. And yet, he could not quite banish the feeling that finding Amelia at his gate in the snow was going to change his life in ways he could not yet imagine. The storm finally broke just before dawn, the wind dying down to a whisper, and the snow stopping its relentless assault. Nathan stood and stretched, his back protesting after a night spent dozing fitfully in his chair. He moved quietly to the window and looked out at a world transformed into a frozen wonderland. Snow had drifted against the cabin and barn, creating sculptures of white that glittered in the weak morning light. Behind him, he heard Amelia stir. He turned to find her awake, watching him with those remarkable eyes. "Good morning," he said. "How are you feeling?" "Sore," she admitted, pushing herself to a sitting position. "And stiff. But alive, thanks to you. The storm has passed. Once it warms up a bit and I can clear some paths, I will ride into town and fetch Doc Harrison to take a look at you." "No," Amelia said sharply, fear flashing across her face. "Please, no one can know I am here." Nathan crossed his arms and studied her. "Amelia, if you are in some kind of trouble, I can help, but I need to know what I am dealing with." She looked down at her hands, twisting the blanket between her fingers. For a long moment, Nathan thought she would not answer. Then she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I was supposed to get married 2 days ago," she said quietly, "to a man named Victor Hawthorne. He owns a large spread about 30 miles south of here, near Great Falls. My father arranged the marriage to settle a debt." Nathan felt his jaw tighten. He knew the type, wealthy men who thought they could buy and sell people like livestock. "I take it you did not want to marry him." "I did not even know him," Amelia said, her voice rising slightly. "We met twice before the wedding. He seemed pleasant enough at first, but then I overheard him talking to one of his ranch hands the night before we were to be married. He was bragging about how he was going to tame me, how he liked his women docile and obedient. He said if I gave him trouble, he knew how to handle it. The way he said it, the tone in his voice, it terrified me. So you ran." "I took a horse and left in the middle of the night. I did not have time to pack properly or dress warmly. I just knew I had to get away. But the storm came up so suddenly, and I got turned around in the snow. My horse threw me when lightning struck a tree nearby. I lost my bearings completely and just started walking. I do not even remember how I ended up at your gate." Nathan moved to sit on the floor near her, wanting her to see his face clearly when he spoke. "Amelia, forced marriage is not right. No woman should be sold like property to pay a debt. But this Victor Hawthorne, he will be looking for you. And your father too, I imagine." "I know," she whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "But I cannot go back. I would rather die out in the snow than become that man's property." "You will not have to do either," Nathan said firmly. The words were out before he had fully thought them through, but once spoken, he knew they were true. "You can stay here with me. I will protect you." Amelia looked at him with such hope and disbelief that it nearly broke his heart. "Why would you do that? You do not even know me." "This could bring serious trouble on you." "Because it is the right thing to do," Nathan said simply. "And because when I found you in that snow and you whispered please, something in me made a promise. 'Always and forever,' I said. I meant it, even if I did not fully understand it at the time. You are under my protection now, Amelia Anderson, for as long as you need it." She stared at him, and in that moment something passed between them. An understanding, a connection that went beyond words. Nathan felt it settle into his bones like warmth spreading through his body after coming in from the cold. "I will earn my keep," Amelia said after a moment. "I can cook and clean, mend clothes, tend animals. I will not be a burden." "I do not doubt it. But first, you need to heal." "We will take things one day at a time." Nathan stood and offered her his hand. "Can you stand? I should help you to the bed so you can rest properly." Amelia took his hand, and he pulled her gently to her feet. She swayed slightly, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. Together they moved slowly to his bed in the corner of the cabin, and he helped her settle onto the mattress. "This is your bed," Amelia protested. "I cannot take it from you. You need it more than I do right now. I will be fine in the chair or on the floor by the fire. No arguments." He pulled the quilts up around her and stepped back. "Rest now. I need to go tend to the animals and clear some paths in this snow." Nathan bundled himself back into his winter gear and headed out into the bright, cold morning. The work was hard, shoveling snow and breaking ice on the water troughs, but he welcomed it. It gave him time to think, to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. He had a woman hiding in his cabin, a woman fleeing a forced marriage to a powerful man, a woman he had promised to protect, no matter the cost. It was reckless, possibly dangerous, and he should probably be questioning his own sanity. But when he thought about Amelia's face, about the fear in her eyes when she spoke of Victor Hawthorne, Nathan knew he would not change his decision even if he could. Something about her called to him on a level he had never experienced before. It was more than just her beauty or the circumstances of how they had met. There was a strength in her, a fire that refused to be extinguished despite everything she had been through. He admired that, respected it. As Nathan worked, he began to form a plan. Fort Benton was a decent-sized town with a proper sheriff, but it also had its share of men loyal to wealth and power. Victor Hawthorne had both, which meant Nathan needed to be smart about how he handled this situation. He could not keep Amelia hidden forever, but he could buy time for them to figure out a more permanent solution. The sun was high in the sky by the time Nathan finished his outdoor chores and returned to the cabin. He found Amelia awake, sitting up in bed with one of his books in her lap. She had clearly found his trunk of spare clothes because she was wearing one of his old shirts, the fabric swallowing her small frame. "I hope you do not mind," she said, gesturing to the shirt. "My dress was ruined and I needed something." "Of course not. We will need to get you some proper clothes, but that will have to wait until it is safe." Nathan moved to the stove and began preparing a meal. "I have been thinking about our situation." And Amelia set the book aside, giving him her full attention. "We need to be smart. Victor Hawthorne will come looking for you if he has not started already. He will check every ranch and homestead in the area. When he comes here, and he will, we need a story that holds up to scrutiny." "What are you suggesting?" Nathan turned to face her, his expression serious. "I am suggesting we tell the truth, or at least a version of it. You are a woman I met in town some months ago. We have been courting quietly, and when the storm hit, you were here visiting and got snowed in. It is not that unusual for couples to spend time together before marriage out here, especially given the distances involved. You would lie for me, risk your reputation. My reputation can handle it, Nathan said with a slight smile. And it is not entirely a lie. You are here, and I do intend to keep you safe, which is a kind of courting in its own way. Amelia laughed at that, the sound bright and unexpected in the small cabin. It transformed her face, chasing away some of the shadows that lingered in her eyes. Nathan found himself wanting to hear that laugh again. You are either very brave or very foolish, Nathan Rivers, she said. Probably a bit of both, he admitted. But we will make it work. We just need to be consistent in our story and not give him any reason to doubt us. Over the next few days, they fell into an easy routine. Amelia's strength returned quickly, and true to her word, she began helping around the cabin. Nathan was surprised by how natural it felt, having her there. She would cook while he tended the animals, and they would eat together by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. Nathan learned that Amelia was 22 years old and had grown up on a small farm in eastern Montana. Her mother had died when she was 15, and her father had struggled with drinking and gambling ever since. He had accumulated debts he could not pay, and when Victor Hawthorne offered to settle them in exchange for Amelia's hand in marriage, her father had agreed without even consulting her. "I do not hate my father," Amelia said one evening as they sat by the fire. "I pity him. He is weak, and the bottle has made him weaker, but I cannot forgive him for selling me like livestock." "You do not have to forgive him," Nathan said. "Some things are not forgivable." Amelia turned to look at him, her expression curious. "You are a good man, Nathan. How did you end up alone out here?" Nathan considered his words carefully. He did not speak often of his past, but something about Amelia made him want to share it. "I grew up in Texas," he began. "My family had a small ranch, nothing fancy, but it was enough. When I was 20, a fever swept through our area. It took my mother and my younger sister. My father never recovered from the loss. He sold the ranch and moved back east to live with his brother. He wanted me to come with him, but I could not stomach the idea of city life. So you came north." "I did. Started fresh up here in Montana territory. Bought this land with money I had saved and built it all from nothing. It has been hard, lonely sometimes, but it is mine. No one can take it from me." "I understand that," Amelia said softly. "The need for something that is yours, something no one else controls." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire dance. Nathan found himself acutely aware of Amelia's presence beside him, the way the firelight caught in her dark hair and cast warm shadows across her face. He had grown increasingly drawn to her over the past days, and it both excited and frightened him. A week after Amelia's arrival, Nathan was chopping wood near the barn when he heard the sound of approaching horses. He set down his axe and moved to where he had a clear view of the road. 4 riders were coming up the path to his cabin, and even from a distance, he recognized the lead man's expensive coat and fine horse. Victor Hawthorne had come calling. Nathan hurried to the cabin, his heart pounding. Amelia looked up as he entered, and the color drained from her face when she saw his expression. "He is here," Nathan said. "Remember what we discussed. You are my girl, have been for months. Be calm and follow my lead." Amelia nodded, though he could see the fear in her eyes. Nathan put his hands on her shoulders, ducking his head to meet her gaze. "I will not let him take you, do you understand? I promised you protection, and I meant it." "I trust you," Amelia whispered. The knock on the door came moments later, hard and demanding. Nathan took a breath to center himself, then opened it. Victor Hawthorne was a tall man in his 40s, with graying hair and cold blue eyes. He looked Nathan up and down with barely concealed disdain, Then his gaze moved past him into the cabin. When he spotted Amelia, his expression hardened. "Miss Anderson," he said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "I have been looking everywhere for you. Your father is worried sick." "Mr. Hawthorne," Nathan said, his tone polite but firm. "What brings you to my property?" Hawthorne's attention snapped back to Nathan. "This woman is my fiancée. She ran away the night before our wedding. I have come to take her home." "I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding," Nathan said calmly. "Amelia is not your fiancée. She is mine. We have been courting for several months now." The lie came easily, smoothly, and Nathan saw Amelia move to stand beside him, her hand slipping into his. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. "That is impossible," Hawthorne said, his voice rising. "Her father promised her to me. We had an agreement." "An agreement that did not include Amelia's consent," Nathan pointed out. "A woman has the right to choose who she marries, and she has chosen me. This is absurd. I have witnesses who will testify that you and she never met before a week ago. Do not think you can hide her here and face no consequences." Nathan felt his temper beginning to rise but kept it carefully controlled. "I am not hiding anyone. Amelia is here of her own free will. If you have an issue with that, you can take it up with the sheriff in town. But she is not leaving with you today." Hawthorne's face had gone red with anger. "You are making a very big mistake, Mr. Rivers. I have friends in this territory, powerful friends. You do not want me as an enemy. And you do not want to force a woman into marriage against her will," Nathan shot back. "Now I suggest you and your men leave my property before this situation escalates further." For a tense moment, Nathan thought Hawthorne might try something. His hand moved subtly to rest on the rifle leaning against the doorframe, making his position clear. Finally, Hawthorne turned on his heel and stalked back to his horse. "This is not over," he called as he mounted. "Not by a long shot." Nathan stood in the doorway, watching until the four riders disappeared down the road. Only then did he close the door and turn to find Amelia trembling beside the table. "Hey," he said softly, moving to her. "You did well. He is gone now." "But he will be back," Amelia said, her voice shaking. "He is not the type to give up easily. And you heard him, he has powerful friends. He could make serious trouble for you." "Let him try," Nathan said with more confidence than he felt. "We told our story and we stuck to it. That is what matters." But even as he spoke the words, Nathan knew this was far from over. Victor Hawthorne had not become a wealthy, powerful man by accepting defeat easily. They had won this battle, but the war was just beginning. That night, Nathan lay awake on his makeshift bed by the fire, staring at the ceiling. He could hear Amelia's soft breathing from his bed across the room and found it strangely comforting. In the span of just over a week, his entire life had been turned upside down. He had a woman living with him, had lied to protect her, and had made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in the territory. And yet, despite all the complications and potential danger, Nathan could not bring himself to regret any of it. Amelia had become important to him in a way he still did not fully understand. It was more than just attraction, though he certainly found her beautiful. It was the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she hummed while cooking, the way her eyes lit up when they talked about books or horses or the land. It was the strength she showed in facing her fears and the vulnerability she allowed him to see. Nathan realized with a start that he was falling in love with her. Perhaps he had been since the moment he found her in the snow and she whispered please. The thought should have terrified him, but instead it filled him with a strange sense of rightness, as if all the lonely years before had been leading him to this moment, to her. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Nathan was outside tending to the horses when he heard a rider approaching. He tensed, his hand moving to the gun at his hip, but relaxed when he recognized Sheriff Tom Morrison from Fort Benton. "Morning, Nathan," Morrison called as he dismounted. He was a solid man in his 50s with a weathered face and keen eyes that missed little. "Sheriff," Nathan greeted him. "What brings you out this way?" "I think you know," Morrison said, though his tone was not unfriendly. "Victor Hawthorne came to see me yesterday, made quite a fuss about you harboring his runaway bride." Nathan crossed his arms. "She is not his bride. She never agreed to marry him." "That is what I told him," Morrison said, surprising Nathan. "I also told him that forced marriage went out of fashion about 100 years ago, and I would not be party to helping him drag an unwilling woman to the altar." "You believe me then?" "I believe Miss Anderson has the right to choose her own husband," Morrison said carefully. "Whether that happens to be you or someone else entirely, Hawthorne is claiming you two never met before last week. Hawthorne can claim whatever he likes. The fact is, Amelia and I have been seeing each other for months. We were just quiet about it because we knew her father wanted her to marry money." Morrison studied him for a long moment. "You are a decent man, Nathan. I have known you since you came to this area, and you have always been straight with me, so I am going to ask you directly. Are you and Miss Anderson truly courting, or are you just trying to save her from a bad situation?" Nathan met the sheriff's gaze steadily. "Both," he said honestly. "I will not lie to you, Tom. We have only known each other a short time, but what I feel for her is real, and I believe she feels something for me too. And yes, I am trying to save her from Victor Hawthorne, because no woman should be forced into marriage to settle someone else's debt." Morrison nodded slowly. "That is what I thought. Well, legally speaking, there is nothing I can do here. Miss Anderson is of age and has the right to refuse a marriage. If she wants to stay with you, that is her choice. But Nathan, I want to warn you that Hawthorne is not going to let this go. He is a proud man and you have embarrassed him. Watch your back." "I will. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you coming out here to tell me yourself." After the sheriff left, Nathan returned to the cabin to find Amelia preparing breakfast. She looked up anxiously as he entered. "I saw you talking to that man. Was that the sheriff?" "It was. He came to check on things after Hawthorne went to see him yesterday." Nathan hung his coat on the peg by the door. "He believes us, or at least he is willing to accept our story. Told Hawthorne he would not help him force you into marriage." Relief flooded Amelia's face. "That is good news, is it not?" "It is," Nathan agreed. "But he also warned me that Hawthorne is not going to give up. We need to be careful." Over the following weeks, life settled into a new normal. Nathan and Amelia continued to share the cabin, and with each passing day, the lie they had told became less of a lie and more of a truth. Nathan found himself looking forward to every moment he spent with her, from the quiet breakfasts to the evenings by the fire. Amelia bloomed in the safety of his protection. The fear that had haunted her eyes gradually faded, replaced by a brightness that took his breath away. She laughed more easily, teased him when he was too serious, and showed a keen interest in learning about ranching. Nathan taught her to ride properly, and together they would explore the snowy landscape, always staying close to the cabin but enjoying the freedom of the open spaces. It was during one of these rides, about a month after she had arrived, that things shifted between them. They had stopped to let the horses drink from a partially frozen creek, and Amelia was admiring the way the winter sun sparkled on the ice. "I never thanked you properly," she said suddenly, turning to face him, "for everything you have done. You saved my life, Nathan, and not just from the cold. You gave me back my freedom, my choices. I will never be able to repay that debt." "There is no debt," Nathan said firmly. I did what any decent person would do. No, Amelia said, stepping closer to him. Most people would have turned me over to Hawthorne or at least stayed out of it. But you chose to help me, to protect me, even though it put you in danger. Why? Nathan looked into her green eyes and knew the time had come to be honest, to lay his cards on the table. Because from the moment I found you in that snow and you whispered please, something in me recognized you. I know how that sounds, believe me, but it is the truth. I made you a promise that night, always and forever, and I meant it. Not just to keep you safe, but to be there for you in whatever way you need. Nathan, Amelia breathed, and then she was in his arms, her lips finding his in a kiss that seemed to warm him from the inside out despite the cold air around them. It was not their first kiss. They had shared a few chaste pecks over the previous weeks, maintaining the fiction of their relationship. But this was different. This was real, charged with all the emotion and attraction that had been building between them since that first night. Nathan pulled her closer, one hand cradling the back of her head while the other wrapped around her waist. Amelia responded with equal fervor, her hands fisting in his coat as if afraid he might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I am falling in love with you, Amelia Anderson, he said. I know it is fast, maybe too fast, but it is true nonetheless. It is not too fast, Amelia whispered. I feel it too. When you found me that night, I thought my life was over, but instead it was just beginning. You have shown me what it means to be valued, respected, cared for. How could I not fall in love with you? They stood there in the winter landscape, holding each other close, and Nathan felt a peace settle over him that he had not known since his mother and sister died. This woman, this brave, beautiful, strong woman had chosen him, and he would spend the rest of his life being worthy of that choice. From that day forward, their relationship deepened in every way. Nathan moved his sleeping arrangements to the floor permanently, still respecting Amelia's virtue, even though every fiber of his being wanted to climb into that bed with her. They needed to do this right, to make it legitimate in the eyes of the law and the church. We should get married, Nathan said one evening in early March. The worst of winter had passed, and the first signs of spring were beginning to show. Properly, I mean, with a preacher and witnesses. Amelia looked up from the shirt she was mending, her face brightening. Are you proposing to me, Nathan Rivers? I suppose I am, Nathan said with a smile. He crossed to where she sat and dropped to one knee beside her chair. Amelia Anderson, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? For real this time, not just in story but in truth. Yes, Amelia said without hesitation. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Nathan stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. When they parted, both were grinning like fools. I do not have a ring yet, Nathan admitted, but I can get one when we go into town to arrange the wedding. I do not need a ring, Amelia said. I just need you. They made plans to ride into Fort Benton the following week to speak with the preacher and make arrangements. Nathan was nervous about taking Amelia into town, knowing that Victor Hawthorne might still have people watching, but they could not hide forever. Besides, the more public they made their relationship and marriage plans, the harder it would be for Hawthorne to claim Amelia was being held against her will. The ride into town was uneventful, and Fort Benton was bustling with activity despite the lingering cold. Nathan kept Amelia close as they made their way to the church, his eyes scanning for any sign of Hawthorne or his men. Reverend Samuel Carter was a kind man in his 60s who had ministered to the people of Fort Benton for over 20 years. He welcomed them warmly into his small office attached to the church. Nathan Rivers, he said, shaking Nathan's hand. I have not seen you in services lately. You must introduce me to your companion. "Reverend Carter, this is Amelia Anderson, my fiancée. We have come to arrange our wedding." The Reverend's eyebrows rose slightly, and Nathan wondered how much he had heard about the situation with Hawthorne. But if Carter had any concerns, he kept them to himself. "A wedding, how wonderful. When were you thinking?" "As soon as possible," Nathan said. "We have already waited longer than we wanted." They discussed dates and details, finally settling on a ceremony in 2 weeks' time. It would give them enough time to make arrangements and for Amelia to have a proper dress made, but not so long that anything could interfere with their plans. As they were leaving the church, Nathan spotted a familiar figure across the street. Victor Hawthorne stood in front of the general store, watching them with cold, calculating eyes. Nathan put his arm around Amelia's shoulders, pulling her close in a clear display of possession and protection. Hawthorne's expression darkened, but he made no move toward them. "Ignore him," Nathan murmured to Amelia. "Let him see that we are serious about this." They made their way to the dressmaker's shop, where a kindly woman named Martha Hayes took Amelia's measurements and showed her fabrics for a wedding dress. Nathan left them to their planning and went to conduct some business at the bank and purchase supplies. He was loading bags into his wagon when Sheriff Morrison approached. "Nathan, I heard you were in town." "Tom," Nathan tipped his hat in greeting, "just making arrangements for my wedding." "So I heard. That is wonderful news. I wish you both very happy." Morrison paused, his expression growing serious. "I also heard that Victor Hawthorne is still in town. He has been here all day, which is unusual for him. Just be careful on your way home." Nathan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "You think he might try something?" "I think he is a man used to getting what he wants, and you have stood in his way. I cannot arrest him for looking at you, but I can tell you to watch yourself. Maybe vary your route back to your place." "I appreciate the warning, Tom." When Amelia emerged from the dress shop, her face glowing with excitement, Nathan hated to dampen her spirits with worry. But as they climbed into the wagon and started the journey home, he found himself constantly checking behind them, watching for any sign of pursuit. They were about halfway home, traveling through a narrow canyon pass, when Nathan's worst fears materialized. 4 riders emerged from the rocks ahead, blocking the road. Nathan recognized 2 of them as Hawthorne's men from his previous visit. "Well, well," one of them said, a large man with a scarred face. "If it is not the lovebirds." Nathan pulled the wagon to a stop and put his hand on the rifle lying on the bench beside him. "Whatever you are planning, I suggest you reconsider. The sheriff knows we are out here." "The sheriff is back in town," the man replied. "Way too far to help you now." Amelia moved closer to Nathan, her hand gripping his arm. He could feel her trembling but saw determination in her eyes rather than fear. "What do you want?" Nathan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Mr. Hawthorne wants his property back. The girl. You hand her over nice and peaceful and we will let you ride away. No hard feelings." "Amelia is not property," Nathan said, his voice hard as steel, "and she is not going anywhere with you." "Then I guess we do this the hard way." The men began to fan out, clearly intending to surround the wagon. Nathan knew he was outnumbered and outgunned. 4 men against 1 with Amelia to protect. The odds were not good. But he had made her a promise, always and forever, and he would die before he let them take her. "Amelia," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off the men. "When I say run, you take the wagon and drive as fast as you can back toward town. Do not stop for anything." "I am not leaving you," she hissed back. "You have to. I cannot fight them and protect you at the same time. Please, Amelia." "Trust me." Before she could respond, Nathan grabbed his rifle and fired a shot over the heads of the men. Their horses reared in surprise, and in that moment of chaos, Nathan slapped the reins hard against his own horse's back. "Run!" he shouted. Amelia took control of the wagon, urging the horse forward. Nathan jumped down, using the wagon as cover as he fired again, this time aiming to wound rather than kill. He clipped one of the men in the shoulder, sending him tumbling from his horse. The other three returned fire, and Nathan dove behind a large boulder. He could hear the wagon disappearing around the bend, Amelia getting away, and relief flooded through him. She was safe, or at least safer. Now he just had to figure out how to get himself out of this. The gunfight seemed to last forever, though it was probably only minutes. Nathan used every bit of cover the canyon provided, moving and firing, trying to keep the men pinned down. He managed to wound another one, but a bullet grazed his upper arm, sending a line of fire across his skin. Just when Nathan was beginning to think his luck had run out, the sound of multiple horses approaching made everyone freeze. A group of 6 riders came thundering around the bend, led by Sheriff Morrison. Behind him, Nathan recognized several of the townsmen, good men who had clearly formed a posse. "Drop your weapons," Morrison shouted. "You are all under arrest." Hawthorne's men looked at each other, clearly weighing their options. Finally, they threw down their guns and raised their hands. Nathan slumped against the boulder, relief making his legs weak. Morrison dismounted and hurried over to him. "Are you hit?" "Just grazed," Nathan said, looking at his bleeding arm. "How did you know?" "Miss Anderson drove that wagon into town like the devil himself was chasing her. She told us what happened and led us straight here." "That is a brave woman you are marrying, Nathan." Nathan looked up and saw another group approaching from town, this time including the wagon. Amelia was driving with one of the townsmen beside her for support. The moment she saw Nathan, she leaped down and ran to him, throwing her arms around him. "You are alive," she sobbed. "I thought they were going to kill you." "I am all right," Nathan assured her, holding her close despite the pain in his arm. "You did exactly right going for help. You saved us both." Morrison and his men rounded up Hawthorne's hired guns, preparing to take them back to town. "I am going to need statements from both of you," the sheriff said. "And then I am going to pay a visit to Victor Hawthorne. Hiring men to kidnap someone is a serious crime." "He will just deny it," Nathan said. "Say they were acting on their own." "Maybe," Morrison agreed, "but even he cannot talk his way out of an attempted kidnapping with multiple witnesses. I have been wanting to take that man down a peg for years. Today might finally be my chance." The ride back to town was tense despite their victory. Doc Harrison insisted on examining both Nathan and Amelia, cleaning and bandaging Nathan's wound and checking Amelia for signs of shock. They gave their statements to the sheriff, detailing everything that had happened. True to Morrison's prediction, when he arrested Victor Hawthorne later that day, the man denied everything. But the wounded men quickly turned on their employer when faced with serious jail time, admitting that Hawthorne had hired them to retrieve Amelia by any means necessary. The scandal rocked Fort Benton. Victor Hawthorne, one of the territory's most prominent ranchers, was charged with conspiracy to kidnap and assault. His trial was set for the following month, and though he hired the best lawyers money could buy, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Nathan and Amelia stayed in town at the boarding house for a few days while Nathan healed, not wanting to risk the journey back to the ranch until they were sure there would be no more trouble. Those days brought them even closer together, if such a thing was possible. Amelia barely left his side, helping to change his bandages and fussing over him in a way that Nathan found both endearing and slightly embarrassing. "I am fine," he insisted one evening. "It is just a scratch." "A scratch that could have been so much worse," Amelia said, her voice catching. "When I drove away and heard those gunshots, I thought my heart would stop. I thought I was going to lose you before we even had a chance to start our life together." Nathan pulled her down to sit beside him on the narrow bed. "But you did not lose me. We are both here, both safe. And in just over a week, we are going to stand in front of that preacher and make this official. Nothing and no one is going to stop that from happening." The day of their wedding dawned bright and clear, the first truly warm day of spring. The church was filled with townspeople, many of whom had come to support Nathan and Amelia after hearing about their ordeal. Sheriff Morrison stood up as Nathan's best man, while Martha Hayes, the dressmaker who had befriended Amelia, served as her maid of honor. When Amelia walked down the aisle in her new dress, Nathan felt his breath catch in his throat. She was radiant, her dark hair arranged in soft curls, her green eyes shining with happiness and love. The dress was simple but elegant, made of cream-colored fabric with delicate lace at the collar and sleeves. Reverend Carter performed the ceremony with warmth and dignity, speaking about the sacred bonds of marriage and the importance of commitment and love. When it came time for the vows, Nathan took both of Amelia's hands in his and spoke from his heart. "Amelia, from the moment I found you in that snow, my life changed forever. You have brought light into my lonely existence, shown me what it means to truly care for someone beyond myself. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you for all my days, always and forever." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she responded with her own vows. "Nathan, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You have shown me what real love looks like, what it means to be valued and respected as a partner. I promise to stand beside you through whatever life brings, to be your companion and your love for as long as we both shall live, always and forever." When Reverend Carter pronounced them husband and wife and invited Nathan to kiss his bride, the resulting embrace was met with cheers and applause from the congregation. Nathan poured every ounce of love and promise into that kiss, claiming Amelia as his own before God and witnesses. The celebration afterward was joyous, with food and music provided by the grateful townspeople. Even Sheriff Morrison cracked a rare smile, raising a glass to toast the newlyweds. "To Nathan and Amelia Rivers," he called out. "May your love grow stronger with each passing year, and may you be blessed with happiness and prosperity." "To the happy couple," the crowd echoed. As the sun began to set and the party wound down, Nathan and Amelia climbed into their wagon to make the journey back to their ranch. Their ranch now, Nathan thought with satisfaction. Their home, their future. The ride was peaceful, with stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. Amelia snuggled close to Nathan, her head resting on his shoulder. "I still cannot quite believe this is real," she murmured. "That I am actually your wife." "Believe it, Mrs. Rivers," Nathan said, loving the way her new name sounded. "You are stuck with me now." "I can think of worse fates," Amelia teased. Then her expression grew more serious. "Nathan, I never asked. Are you disappointed that we have to wait?" "I know most couples would have already. Well, you know." Nathan understood what she was asking. They had maintained propriety throughout their engagement, sleeping in separate rooms at the boarding house. But tonight was their wedding night, and expectations would naturally be different. "I am not disappointed," he said honestly. "I am just grateful that you are mine in whatever way you are comfortable with. We have the rest of our lives, Amelia. There is no rush." But when they arrived home and Nathan lit the lamps in their cabin, the atmosphere between them had shifted. This was their first night as husband and wife in their own home, with no need to maintain appearances or worry about propriety. They were married, bound by law and faith, and free to express their love fully. Amelia moved to stand in front of Nathan, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "I love you," she said simply. I want to be your wife in every way." Nathan's response was to pull her into his arms and kiss her with all the passion he had been holding back for weeks. Their wedding night was everything it should be, tender and passionate, awkward and perfect all at once. They discovered each other slowly, learning what brought pleasure and joy, cementing their bond in the most intimate way possible. The days that followed established the pattern of their married life. Nathan worked the ranch while Amelia managed their home, but they did many things together as well. Amelia proved to be a natural horsewoman, and she often rode out with Nathan to check on the cattle or mend fences. They were partners in the truest sense, making decisions together, supporting each other through challenges. Victor Hawthorne's trial took place in May, and both Nathan and Amelia were called to testify. Facing Hawthorne across the courtroom was difficult for Amelia, but she held her head high and told her story with courage and clarity. The jury found Hawthorne guilty on all counts, sentencing him to 5 years in the territorial prison. His ranch was sold to pay legal fees and restitution, effectively ending his reign as one of Montana's most powerful men. "It is really over," Amelia said as they left the courthouse. "He cannot hurt me anymore." "He never could," Nathan assured her. "Not with me here to protect you." As spring turned to summer and then to fall, Nathan and Amelia settled into their life together. They added to their herd, made improvements to the cabin and barn, and began to save money for future expansion. Their love deepened with each passing day, growing from the initial spark of attraction into something solid and enduring. In October, Amelia came to Nathan with news that filled them both with joy. She was pregnant, due to deliver their first child the following spring. Nathan was overcome with emotion at the prospect of becoming a father, of creating a family with the woman he loved. "I am scared," Amelia admitted as they lay in bed that night, Nathan's hand resting on her still flat stomach. "What if something goes wrong? What if I am not a good mother?" "You will be an amazing mother," Nathan said with absolute certainty. "And nothing is going to go wrong. Doc Harrison will make sure of that, and I will be right here with you through all of it." The winter of 1883 was milder than the previous year, for which they were both grateful. Amelia's pregnancy progressed normally, and though she had some difficult days with sickness and fatigue, she remained healthy and strong. Nathan fussed over her constantly, insisting she rest more and work less, until Amelia finally threatened to hit him with a frying pan if he did not stop treating her like she was made of glass. In late April, just over a year after their wedding, Amelia went into labor. Doc Harrison had moved into their spare room a week earlier, just to be safe, and he coached them through the long, difficult process of bringing new life into the world. Nathan held Amelia's hand through it all, offering encouragement and support, feeling helpless in the face of her pain but grateful to be there nonetheless. When their baby's first cries filled the cabin in the early morning hours, Nathan felt tears streaming down his face. "It is a boy," Doc Harrison announced, placing the squalling infant in Amelia's waiting arms. "A healthy, strong boy." Nathan looked down at his son, at the tiny perfect face and miniature fists waving in indignation, and felt his heart expand to hold this new love. Amelia was crying too, gazing at their baby with wonder and exhaustion in equal measure. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." They named him Thomas Nathan Rivers after Sheriff Morrison and Nathan himself. Tom Morrison was honored when they asked him to be godfather, accepting with tears in his usually stoic eyes. Young Tommy was a happy baby, filling their home with laughter and chaos. Nathan discovered that he loved being a father, marveling at each new milestone and development. Amelia bloomed in motherhood, finding reserves of patience and love that seemed endless. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter whom they named Sarah Elizabeth, after Nathan's late mother and sister. Then 2 years after that came another son, James. Their family grew, and their love expanded to encompass each new addition. The ranch prospered as well. Nathan's hard work and dedication, combined with Amelia's sharp mind for business, allowed them to steadily increase their holdings. They hired help when needed, always treating their employees fairly and with respect. Their reputation in the area grew, known as honest ranchers who valued integrity over profit. Sheriff Morrison became a regular visitor to their ranch, forming a deep friendship with both Nathan and Amelia. He never married himself, but seemed content to serve as honorary uncle to the river's children, who adored him. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Amelia stood on the porch of their cabin, now expanded to accommodate their growing family. They watched the sun set over the Montana landscape, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You ever think about that night?" Amelia asked, leaning into Nathan's embrace. "When you found me at the gate?" "All the time," Nathan admitted. "I think about how close I came to losing you before I even knew you. How different my life would be if I had gone to bed 5 minutes earlier, if I had not heard you." "I was so scared that night," Amelia said. "I thought I was going to die alone in the snow. And then you appeared, like an angel sent to save me." "I am no angel," Nathan said with a laugh, "but I am grateful every day that I found you, that you trusted me enough to whisper please, and that something in me knew to respond always and forever. Do you regret it?" Amelia asked, turning in his arms to look up at him. "All the trouble it brought you, the danger, the complications?" "Not for a single second," Nathan said firmly. "You and our children are the best things that ever happened to me. I would go through it all again in a heartbeat if it meant ending up here with you." They kissed then, a kiss filled with 5 years of love and partnership, of challenges overcome and joys shared. From inside the cabin, they could hear Tommy and Sarah playing while baby James babbled happily. It was the sound of home, of family, of a life built on the foundation of 2 desperate words whispered in a snowstorm and answered with a promise kept. The years continued to pass, bringing both sorrows and celebrations. They lost Nathan's father to age, though he had reconciled with Nathan enough to visit once and meet his grandchildren. Amelia's father never reached out, and she made peace with that loss, building her own family instead of mourning the one she had left behind. Their children grew into fine young people. Tommy became a skilled rancher like his father, with a natural way with horses and cattle. Sarah had her mother's sharp mind and her father's determination, eventually becoming the first female schoolteacher in Fort Benton. James split his interests between ranching and law, eventually studying to become a lawyer to help protect ranchers' rights in the rapidly changing territory. Montana achieved statehood in 1889, and Nathan and Amelia celebrated along with their neighbors, proud to be part of the growing nation. The wild frontier days were slowly giving way to civilization, though the spirit of independence and self-reliance remained strong in Montana. On their 20th anniversary, Nathan surprised Amelia with a trip to Helena, the state capital. They stayed in a fancy hotel and ate at restaurants, enjoying a rare break from the demands of ranch life. One evening, as they strolled through the city streets, Amelia stopped in front of a jewelry store window. "See something you like?" Nathan asked, following her gaze to a display of rings. "I was just thinking," Amelia said. "You never did get me an engagement ring. Not that I ever needed one, but I was curious what you would have chosen." Nathan pulled her into the store without another word. The jeweler showed them tray after tray of rings, but Nathan's eye was drawn to one in particular, It was elegant in its simplicity. A single emerald surrounded by small diamonds, the green stone the exact shade of Amelia's eyes. "This one," he said, picking it up. "This is the one I would have chosen." He slipped it onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Amelia looked down at it, tears glistening in her eyes. "Nathan, it must have cost a fortune." "You are worth a fortune," Nathan said. "You are worth everything." 20 years, Amelia. 20 years since I found you in that snow, and I love you more now than I did then. I did not think that was possible, but it is true. "I love you too," Amelia whispered. "My rescuer, my husband, my partner in all things. Always and forever, just like you promised." They purchased the ring, and Amelia wore it proudly alongside her simple gold wedding band. It became a symbol of their enduring love, a reminder that the best things in life are worth waiting for and fighting for. As they entered their later years, Nathan and Amelia began to slow down, gradually turning over more of the ranch operations to Tommy and his new wife. They spent their time enjoying their grandchildren, of which they eventually had 7, and reflecting on the life they had built together. One winter evening, 30 years after that fateful night when everything changed, they sat by the fire in their enlarged cabin. Snow was falling outside, gentle and steady, reminding them both of that long-ago storm. 30 years, Amelia mused, holding Nathan's hand. "Has it really been that long?" "Best 30 years of my life," Nathan said. "Though I will admit we are not quite as spry as we used to be." Amelia laughed. "Speak for yourself, old man. I can still ride circles around you." "That you can," Nathan agreed fondly. He looked at his wife, at the silver threads in her dark hair and the lines around her eyes that spoke of years of laughter and love. She was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. "What are you thinking?" Amelia asked, catching his gaze. "I am thinking about promises kept," Nathan said. "About how I told you always and forever that night, not really knowing what I was promising. But I have kept that promise, Amelia. Through good times and bad, through struggles and triumphs, I have loved you always and I will love you forever." "And I you," Amelia said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved me that night, Nathan, not just from the cold but from a life without love, without choice, without joy. You gave me everything I never knew I needed." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire dance and listening to the wind outside. It was peaceful, this life they had built. It had not always been easy, but it had always been worth it. As the years continued to advance, Nathan and Amelia aged gracefully together, neither wanting to imagine life without the other. They celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch had become a legacy, passed down through generations, a testament to the love and hard work of two people who had found each other against all odds. Nathan lived to see Montana truly transform from wild territory to settled state, from frontier to farmland. He saw the railroads expand and the buffalo disappear, saw towns grow and the old ways fade. Through it all, Amelia was at his side, his constant companion and greatest love. When Nathan was 72 years old, he fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Doc Harrison had long since retired, but his successor did everything possible to help. For weeks, Nathan fought the infection while Amelia never left his side, nursing him with the same fierce determination she applied to everything in her life. One evening, as Nathan's fever finally broke and he began to recover, he looked at Amelia with wonder. "You are still saving me," he said weakly. "All these years later, you are still saving me." "We save each other," Amelia corrected gently. "That is what love does." Nathan recovered from that illness and lived another 8 years, making it to the ripe old age of 80. He passed peacefully in his sleep one spring night, with Amelia holding his hand. His last words to her were the same words he had spoken so many years before in the snow, always and forever. Amelia grieved deeply for her husband but took comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the life they had built together. She lived another 5 years, staying sharp and active until the end. When her time came, she went peacefully, surrounded by family, a smile on her face as if she could see Nathan waiting for her. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking their ranch, with a single stone marking their resting place. The inscription reads simply, "Nathan and Amelia Rivers, always and forever." Their love story became legend in Fort Benton, passed down through generations. The tale of the cowboy who found a freezing woman at his gate, how she whispered please and he whispered always and forever, and how that promise changed both their lives. It was a reminder that true love exists, that promises kept matter, and that even in the darkest, coldest moments, hope can appear in the most unexpected ways. The Rivers Ranch continued to operate for generations, each new owner learning the story of how it all began. The original cabin was preserved and maintained, becoming a family shrine of sorts, a place where descendants could come and remember the two people who had started it all. Tommy Rivers, their eldest son, became the family historian, writing down everything his parents had told him about their early days together. He recorded Amelia's flight from Victor Hawthorne, Nathan's rescue, the fight to protect what they had, and the love that had sustained them through 52 years of marriage. His written account was treasured by the family and eventually donated to the Montana Historical Society, ensuring that the story of Nathan and Amelia Rivers would never be forgotten. Sarah Rivers, who became a respected educator and advocate for women's rights in Montana, often told her mother's story as an example of female courage and determination. She spoke of how Amelia had refused to be forced into marriage, how she had risked everything for freedom, and how she had built a partnership of equals with Nathan rather than accepting a subordinate role. Sarah's work helped pave the way for women's suffrage in Montana and beyond. James Rivers used his legal skills to help other women in situations similar to his mother's, working to change laws that allowed forced marriages and giving women more legal rights and protections. He often credited his mother's story with inspiring his career path, saying that if she could fight so hard for her freedom, the least he could do was help others do the same. The emerald ring that Nathan had given Amelia on their 20th anniversary became a family heirloom, passed down to the eldest daughter in each generation. Each woman who wore it learned the story of Nathan and Amelia, of a love that began in desperation and grew into something beautiful and enduring. On the 100th anniversary of that fateful night when Nathan found Amelia at his gate, the family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Over 100 descendants came, from across Montana and beyond, all connected by the love of two people who had been brave enough to take a chance on each other. The current owner of the ranch, Nathan's great-great-grandson, stood before the assembled family and retold the story once more. He spoke of the snowstorm, the whispered plea, the promise made and kept. He talked about the challenges they had faced and overcome, the family they had built, and the legacy they had left behind. "We are all here because of their courage," he said. Because Nathan chose to help a stranger, and because Amelia chose to trust him. Because they chose each other, again and again, for over 50 years. Let us honor their memory by living our lives with the same courage, the same commitment, and the same capacity for love. The family raised glasses in a toast, their voices echoing across the Montana landscape that Nathan and Amelia had loved so well. To Nathan and Amelia, always and forever. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in brilliant colors, a light snow began to fall. It was gentle and beautiful, nothing like the deadly storm of 100 years before, but the family members looked at each other and smiled. It felt like a sign, like Nathan and Amelia were watching over them still, their love enduring beyond death, beyond time itself. The story of Nathan and Amelia Rivers lived on, told and retold with each passing generation. It became more than just a family story. It became a testament to the power of love, the importance of keeping promises, and the truth that sometimes the most extraordinary things can come from the most desperate moments. A frozen woman at a gate, a whispered plea, and a promise that would shape generations. Always and forever, just as Nathan had said. Always and forever, just as they had lived.